Hi, my name is Jennifer Finn, and I am in ESP309 with Professor Pagan. I am filming this in my apartment in my bedroom, and I'm doing this film analysis on the inequalities and empathy shown in Motorcycle Diaries. The film I'm analyzing for this midterm is called The Motorcycle Diaries, and it was directed by Walter Salles in 2004. The film is about 126 minutes long, and the film is about a young middle school student who just recently graduated named Ernesto, aka known as Che in historical terms, and his friend named Alberto. They take a trip through South Latin America on their motorcycle, and the controversial experiences they see along the way, Ernesto writes about it in his diary, where it then is later retold. The biggest topic the film explores is abundance of inequality in a continent that is often unrecognized and ignored. There are three main ideas that the director really wants to emphasize in this film. The first thing is that the director wants to kind of retell the history of Che. Secondly, he wants to definitely show that the trip that they made across Latin America was by no means easy. Lastly, he really wants to make it clear that this film is also showing a coming-of-age story for Che. In the film Motorcycle Diaries, Walter Salles proposes his message of inequality and empathy in Latin America during the 20th century. The scene in the movie that presents an optimal example of my thesis is about halfway through the movie, where Ernesto and Alberto visit Chile and run into a couple in the middle of the desert. In this scene, they sit down with the couple at night and around a fire, and the couple tells them about how they lost their job. Later the next day, the husband shares with them that he has to compete every day to work in the mine nearby. The scene is vital because for the first time, you really see Ernesto open his eyes and become witness to the realization of inequality. This couple is suffering and they can barely survive, and I think that really transforms him as he goes to the mine work owner the next day and fights with him about the lack of hydration he's providing to these workers and how unfair he's being for not choosing everybody to work. Later on in this development of this scene, it's referenced back to this scene because Alberto eventually finds out from Ernesto that he gave up the $15 his girlfriend gave him for that couple who was struggling. This scene adds to Ernesto's growth throughout the film and really just solidifies his transition to having the desire to help these people and change and fight the inequalities that are surrounding them. Besides the film element of empathy in this film, I found that sound and fictional tone was also very relevant. In regards to sound, when they're around the campfire and the couple's telling Ernesto and Alberto their story, you hear nothing else but their story. And sound is them talking, and it really draws you in and makes you really want to listen to this story. The non-fictional tone in this movie is really relevant because during this whole scene, it's something that the audience can really relate to. I think the ideas of inequality and empathy used in this film by Salles was very well conveyed. I think he did a really good job at using the film elements that I had described of prior, because the audience really gets drawn in, and not only do they really start to feel bad for this couple, they really start to kind of understand the pain that they face. And I think this scene is just really great because it's such a strong scene. It's in the middle of the movie, and it's just like that full circle moment where you just really understand what this film is about. Between drawing your attention during the scene where they're telling their story because you hear nothing else, to making you just very emotionally invested in what is happening, and really just made that impact of the message stick with the viewer and really help you kind of uncover the hidden message that Salles was trying to provide. I think the ideas in this film by Walter Salles is still very much relevant today, given the fact that this movie was made in 2004, and I think it was kind of purposely because the inequality that was represented back then in Latin America for the poor and the people who were struggling and weren't of higher status is really very relevant today. Now, the pre-revolutionary issues that were occurring in Latin America that is related in this film very much correlates to the homosexuality issues faced all over the world today, especially Latin America. Rather, the poor being treated unequally, which they still very much are today, more relevantly, the LGBTQ youth is treated and isolated so badly. Many of them do not have the equal right to get married in most places, and many of them are not getting jobs because they're being discriminated against for who they love and who they choose to be with for the rest of their life. From 20th century Latin America to the 21st century Latin America and the rest of the world, inequality still exists. And Walter Salles did a really good job at spreading that message in this movie.